in this day and time, for me to talk to my son is a privilege, an opportunity to tell you that I'm proud of you.
I appreciate
I
you.
really am proud of you. Uh, I just wish things were different, you know, between us and things that happened to you that I didn't know anything about. Nobody told me anything. I stumbled on this, and that was the sad thing that hurt me more about you. I am basically a law-abiding person. I really am.
Yes, you
And
are.
I would have done a lot of things different if I had known the truth in your situation as my son.
I welcome you to a safe space and we can have a conversation that leads to healing. Welcome to Put It on Front Street.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in to Put It on Front Street. Today's guest is none other than my father, Ciro Baines. We will be talking about father-son relationships, some hurdles that we have had within our relationship as father and son. And we'll get some clarity on some things for both of us, and we will just have a good, solid conversation that has been in the works for a long time, and that we just need to just kind of like get off of our chest in a respectful way. Um, and I'm just going to introduce my dad. So,
Thank you.
welcome, Dad.
Thank you, son, for inviting me over for this special occasion.
Yeah,
I look forward to talking to you finally after all those years.
yeah, yeah.
So we can begin by whatever questions you have.
So I would say, what was your upbringing like?
My upbringing. Well, that's an interesting question because it's a multiple upbringing because I was born in Spokane, Washington. I was born in the 40s, 1949. I had dual familyship. My mother was a Catholic. My father was a Baptist. And I grew up basically in a multiracial neighborhood with everyone that I could think of as far as, people that I grew up with and learned from because my community was a working class community. We were poor. We were just hardworking people. We did as much as we could, to sustain in that day and time. I came from a city that it was very conservative, very menial work for people of color, no matter who we were. We actually got along real well because we all went to the same school together. So that was very interesting because that's how I got my education from the standpoint of the people that I live around because
Mm-hmm.
they were mostly Japanese, uh, Jewish people, Caucasians, uh, what else? Native American Indians that lived in the neighborhood. So I learned from them as much as they learned from me. So my upbringing was based on integration of color, people, customs, anything that had to do with learning about each other, we learned. We were a very tight knit community. We actually got along so well that we were like brothers and sisters. We shared everything. We worked together. We played together. We went to school together. And those things were very important to me because I got to find out who I was. We never got into the thing about color. And when we were growing up, we were always kids, growing up doing different things. So I was somewhat mischievous, when I was growing up. I had some good friends, and I had some bad people, around me, kids that always were jealous of us. I guess you want to say that, as a child. I never, felt vindictive, or vengeful. I was taught how to fight, took care of myself, somewhat of a survivalist. I worked on developing me as a person, as a kid, because my father always taught me that You must know your surroundings at all times. Wherever you go in life, you got to know where you go into and where you come out of. So I was taught that at an early age how to grow up in a multiracial, society,
Yeah.
and and I actually learned a lot, from everybody. I'm just kind of saddened by the fact that our community got divided because of federal regulation of having a new freeway going through our community, which broke up our community,
Dynamic.
the dynamics of our community, our friendship. People had to go different places, and we never were able to regain that. So kind of left me lonely, because a lot of my friends moved away. I had brothers and sisters. I had three sisters, two brothers, including myself, was six. We all grew up learning how to work, in the family that we had. We had developed trust, understanding. We bickered, we fought, just like kids do. My mother and father were always worked two jobs, raising us kids, as we were, three girls, three boys. So we actually, got along pretty much until, we went on into our various social path, of learning what we wanted to do. I, as a person, in elementary school was always, how would you say, uninterest. I had an uninterest in doing things because I wasn't ever motivated, in school. I was always motivated by my father, my grandmother, my neighbors who were skilled people, carpenters, welders, electricians, those kind of people. I was a more technical person growing up, because I worked doing those things when I was young. I started working when I was 10 years old, and I've never stopped.
Yes, I know.
So
For the
those are,
world that doesn't know, my father is a young 73. He does not look it at all. He can run with the best of us. But I feel like that was instilled in me and my little sister from such a young age of to be so independent. And sometimes I felt like that was all we knew from you was just strong work ethic, which is
yeah,
amazing. But me personally, as your first and your only son,
yeah,
was a little taken back, I would say, because I didn't get
the opportunity.
the opportunities to have the throwing the
Oh,
basketball,
sure.
or playing a sport with you, or
Mm.
any of the things that I felt like society says that a father and son's supposed to have as a relationship.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I felt like that was kind of like a disdain and a distance between us.
Yeah,
Yes, you taught me to be very self-sufficient, which has helped me to be a great provider for myself and for my partner. But also, I had a lot to learn from emotionally. I
yeah,
didn't have that kind of emotion,
growing.
yeah, growing with you.
Mm.
Like it was very,
Very hard.
very hard. Like you always, in a way, kept a wall up.
Yeah.
And so I feel like as a father, you know, I don't want to say regrets, but what would you say would be a biggest thing that you would want to or have had change between us personally?
I personally look at it from a parent standpoint, being a father, having you as my son, and being, how would you say, independent and spoiled, and being wanting, my attention was great. I had no problem. I tried my best to find time because of my work habits, and having to work two jobs at the same time all the time, ever since you were a kid. I would think of it as this for me, for you to understand. I didn't choose to do this. I actually inherited it, should I say,
Yeah.
because of the environment that I was in. I think living in the South for the very first time and never leaving home until I was like 24 years old, I always concentrated on where I was living at, what I was able to do. And coming to the South as a to me, crossing the Mason-Dixie line, I was told that certain things had happened, during the Jim Crow, segregation, the Klans and that kind of thing was just, infiltrated from the standpoint of my neighbors who came from the South. So they always made me aware of what I was dealing with, but mostly to protect yourself or protect myself at the time, And looking over that and having that cultural shock, being able to see your true identity was an inspiration. But for you to understand what you went through with me being a father, didn't want to take you out of that environment at a young age because I wanted you to understand that this is what the world is all about, even though you didn't see it. But looking back and seeing how you grew and became successful at what you do now really paid off. It may not look like it did, but it did. I mean, we all have to understand the emotions that go along with being a parent. And actually, from a child standpoint, I love you to death. There wasn't anything I wouldn't do for you. I think that's why I put all my energy in working to make sure that you were safe, secure, and taught the right things in life, the right and wrong. I wasn't there to really find out about your emotional standpoint growing up because I was so engulfed in doing work for other people and their demands were so great on me because of what I was able to do for them. Mm-hmm. I think I made more money for them than I made for myself. Yeah. But I neglected my child, one I really wanted to be with. I wanted to teach you how to hunt, fish, survive, and do everything else. And even if you choose to play sports, I wanted to do that. But the demands of the world I live in was far more greater than me being able to help, you as a young black child to develop the skills and controlling the emotional setbacks, the growth process, the actual awareness of who I was with you was very hard because of what I had so many people pulling at me, and that's hard. I really felt bad about it because it happened. And to correct it, I'm glad I'm trying to express it today because I know it was so important for you to know. I never wanted to turn my back on my child. I never wanted to leave you in any circumstances. I felt that your mother was strong enough to understand who I was because I explained to her what I wanted in my family. And especially my son and my daughter, I wanted them to know what I was about, what I was there for. Yeah. It was not just there to provide for you, but to show you the things that you need to know about growth. Yeah. And those things that, life is very strange sometimes to black children and black men. We are faced with a lot of obscurities. Yeah. And in this day and time, for me to talk to my son is a privilege, an opportunity to tell you that I'm proud of you.
I appreciate it.
I really am proud of you. I just wish things were different, between us and things that happened to you that I didn't know anything about. Nobody told me anything. I stumbled on this, and that was the sad thing that hurt me more about you. I am basically a law-abiding person. I really am. Yes. And I would have done a lot of things different if I had known the truth in your situation as my son. Because like I spent time telling your mother, it's so important to create trust and love and understanding between parents and their child, and to show them, walk them through life at an adolescent stage. I didn't have that with my mother and father because they were always working, just like I ended up doing. So, to repeat what I just said, I wanted a good upbringing for you. I wanted you to be where you are now, but you had to go through your phases, emotional phases, social phases, outlook of finding out who you were. I just discovered a lot of things about myself that I really wanted to tell you when you were young. I wanted to show you and create something that you had a legacy to stand on. And that legacy was our heritage, our basic fundamental respect for people, human beings, and yourself, and where you fit in the society in which we lived in. We had to create our own way. Nobody taught us these things but us. We had to face that emotional, the ups and downs, and whatever went with us. Some of us didn't have two parents, some didn't. But the thing about it is that I wanted to share this with you today because I wanted you to know that all I put into what I did was basically for you and your sister. And I wanted you both to understand that life is very, very strange sometimes when we're dealing with our emotions because they can play tricks on us. And we get angry, we get confused, or we make the wrong decision because we don't have the calmness or the understanding of how to work with things that we have problems. I wanted you to be actually a problem solving person, to be able to understand that whatever you're faced with, there's a will and a way to become whoever it is that you want to be. But you have to know what you are in that circle. You have to first know you're a child or you're a young adult or whatever. You had to understand that people are all different, no matter who they were. And to be able to do that, you had to understand that those things in life that make us what we are predicated on who we are. And you were a very strong young man, even at a young age, that really amazed me. I just said, wow, he's going to be all right, if he gets the chance to where he can develop, his emotional, psychological, physical characteristics to where he fits in life, you know. And I wanted to share that with you today to let you know that I had all the intentions in the world to make sure that you become that person you want to be.
I think a lot of just watching you on a daily basis was inspiring. Um, and yes, it took quite some time for us to have this conversation, but I'm blessed to have it because you're alive, and most people don't have the chance to have a healthy conversation that leads to healing between father and son.
Oh yeah.
And I think you for being a little more stern on me uh, because it did shape me and it helped me overcome a lot of obstacles sometimes that I had to deal with on my own.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings me to the next, not question, but I literally just exploded 2 years ago, Christmas, and told you what happened to me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and how it kind of molded, who I was trying to figure out and understand why it happened to me. But like, it wasn't even much a blame situation with you or mom. It was just more of a like, you guys didn't see a complete like light switch. You didn't see a change. And I know that you guys were hardworking and, wanting to always provide, this amazing life that we had. but it also took you away from actually seeing what transpired.
That's true.
Um,
Very true.
and of course, looking back, you would have changed how you did things to a
Oh,
certain
yeah.
extent. Um, but hearing how grandfather and grandmother was so hardworking, working two jobs and raising six of you guys, you just kind of repeated that pattern. And I don't
So,
look at it as a curse. I just look at it as, survival mode, or
yeah.
just fully just wanting to make a better life for
For
your
your
children.
kids. Yeah.
Um, so I don't look at it as, oh, a generational curse. I just look at it as like, okay, you had a great example, excuse me, a great example of, a father and a mother working, and I was blessed to have both as well, but something slid under the cracks.
Sure.
And
I see
it kind
where.
of like, of course, made me change in a way that I wasn't proud of, like certain things that I had to go through by myself,
That's right.
um, which is something that, for those that don't know, I was, molested by someone in my family on my mother's side, um, and it made me go through life angry and very dark,
Disappointed.
and of course disappointed, because I was like, well, my mom and my dad are gonna know. They're gonna know something has changed. They're gonna see it. They're gonna, and you guys didn't recognize it, and it just made me feel even more of alone, because
Yeah.
I'm like, well, damn, my dad and my mom don't even see it, so maybe this was supposed to happen, or like I just have to keep pushing through it. And I guess this is my journey by myself. And it was hurtful because I was just like, well, I don't even want to share it or tell anybody, because the shame that came with it. Um, is anybody truly going to believe me? Um, and so many other emotions that were attached to it, uh, just brought us to kind of like a breaking point when I wasn't speaking to you for years,
Yeah.
um, which now I can say now, looking at you, I'm sorry, because it wasn't your fault. Um, it wasn't anybody's fault but the person that did it.
Yeah.
But I can say that now I'm better because I did the work, and I'm continuing to do the work, to be a better person and to shed light on those type of circumstances that may fall through the cracks, because there's a lot of working parents out there that, don't have the support system, and they think that they can trust someone around their kid, and a lot of times they
Not to.
can't.
Yeah.
So my next follow-up question would be, how would you let another parent out there navigate that kind of situation of knowing that their child was touched inappropriate by someone, and how to even like swallow that, or deal with that on your own, because that's something that I know that you had to deal with and come to terms with.
Well, the way I look at it, I can only look at it from our standpoint, and I would say to parents today, being if they have children, male or female, is to be able to understand what you want for your children and how you want them to know these things exist. And I think the appropriate way to do it is to educate them in a child's way to make them understand the dis the distant future has a lot to do with their growth. But if they know what is right and what is wrong with something inappropriately, they should know from their mother and father.
Yeah.
They should take an interest in understanding the psychological impact that it has on their child, understanding how to develop a mechanism that protects them in these situations that they may not even be around or not even know about. But they, as a child, no matter what age this may have happened, in your age it must have been like from 6 or whatever. But what I'm saying is that I thought that, when we were, always giving you a bath and stuff, that when we were was telling you, don't let anybody touch you in any inappropriate way. I know you were young and you didn't quite understand, but we always used to say, take care of this, because this is your, way of knowing if you're going to be okay. There's a safety factor. I was trying to create a safety net for you to prepare yourself. If it happens, you have your mother and father.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I would say to parents today. You have to take an extra step and transpired, from one incidents to another in your own personal life or other people that that these things have happened, and to create a safety net or alert, for them to be prepared for something of this nature. We don't want our children going through it, but we don't know what, can occur. So today as a parent, a mature parent, knowing what has happened to my child and it wasn't told to me. And I say this to you, I'm sorry that it happened. And I'm sorry I wasn't there for you to correct the problem, because I would have never allowed it to even go any further than that, period. Because I come from a situation in my life where people were honest, truthful, and respectful. And they would understand that when you have something like this happen, you all come together and support that person who's been a victim of the situation. I thought your mother would have been able to tell me, or somebody would have been able to step up while I was doing the things I was doing, working, trying to, do all the things. But had I known in my heart, I wouldn't have done anything violently to anyone. You
Yeah,
know,
right.
I would be able to say that if you care for your child, you take the appropriate actions in a legal way. And you would make that person pay for something that they know this was totally wrong that happened to their child, to even to that child. So the therapeutic thing about life is give them love when crisis situation come about. Support them to the point where they have the feeling and knowing that they have love and caring, and being able to reach out and extend their whole self, whole mind, body, and soul into that child to strengthen them. Psychologically is so important because they don't know what's right and wrong. They have no understanding of the pain that can happen under these circumstances, even though it's happening. They had no way of having questions to ask or finding answers from anyone unless they're strong enough or capable enough to say, Mom and Daddy, something happened to me that I don't know why it happened. Had I heard that from the very moment from your mouth, it would have never existed anymore. You would have never been bothered with it anymore, because I'm affiliated with a family that's very well known and capable of doing anything. And they would protect their grandchildren, they would protect their child, they would protect anyone. Because I'm within the legal system, I have a very powerful family. But the thing, what I'm saying to you as a parent, prepare yourself at all times when it comes to your children. Never take anything for granted, no matter what it is. Their behavior change, pay attention to that. Be observant at all times, whatever it is that they're asking or not asking or trying to answer or get answers for. Stop. Forget about what you're doing and just listen to them. Listen to your children.
Well, I thank my father for being transparent and vulnerable. And we will take a quick break and we will be right back with Put It on Front Street. I'm your host, Pierre Baines, with my guest, Zero Baines, my father. And we'll be right back.
All right.
My father, Zero Baines. And we're going to continue our healthy conversation together. And my next question to my dad is, what do you think of the state of the world that we're in right now when it regards to mental health?
Well, in this day that we see the situations that are occurring with the homelessness and the people that are on Skid Row or whatever areas of this country, no matter if it's east, west, north, south, they're the same people. They just may be different parts of areas that tend to do more or less. But mental health is a crisis in this country that was once addressed, is no longer addressed as it should be. We need to take a closer look at ourselves and ask us, could we not have been that person ourselves?
Yeah. Shoe on
And
the other foot.
yeah, and I say, well, yes, we can be that person at any given time in life because of the way our society is. We are doing more harm for the people today than we have ever done before. We have let those people who have mental health issues out of those hospitals into the streets, and they created a sense of chaos. And that chaos stems from a lot of people persecuting the, the homeless people as well as the mentally incompetent people in this country. We made a serious, serious mistake in this country. And I don't know if this country can rebound from that mistake unless we have the right people in the right position and the knowledgeable people that understand what homelessness is, what mental health is, and what the situation would be like if they had the proper need to help them, to resolve their problems. Because a lot of people need their medicine. A lot of people need to be taken care of that are not being taken care of. They shouldn't be in a homeless community. They shouldn't be in any street. People today, it doesn't matter who you are or what you have to learn that we are a society that's predicated on money. Everything in this country is all about money. If you're rich, you're okay, but that's not true. Hear me clearly. Just because you have money doesn't mean you're safe. Doesn't mean that you can't get sick. Doesn't mean that you can't lose your wealth. Doesn't mean that you can't do something with good in the reference of having to look at other people and you turn your nose down on them. They didn't have the choice to do this. A lot of those people that you turn your nose down on were very educated people, very, astute people, but they ran into a bad course in their life and they fell down and they couldn't get back up. A lot of them became alcoholics. A lot of them became drug addicts. A lot of them women turned out to be prostitutes to take care of themselves. You can't blame these people for that. You can only blame the system in which we live in that created this problem, and it was for a reason. And that's the strangest thing that has to come at another time in this conversation because you're talking about politics and you're talking about
Greed.
people, wanting to utilize the homeless to make them slaves, and help them build your means of wealth instead of extending your wealth out to them and raising up the masses. This is the strangest society that we live in this country because they don't realize where they come from and they don't know why they came here. They don't know the plan that was set for in the process of being this country what it is. They built the country on the backs of people like ourselves, our forefathers. But in essence, we were all supposed to be doing the work or the bid for the people who had money, who had knowledge, who had understanding of how to create a society for themselves, not for anybody else, but for the 1% who own this country. And a lot of people don't know who they are. But I'm going to cut it to the point where I feel ashamed for them because with all their wealth and all their powers, and I don't care what country you live in, you will pay. Everybody must understand that. In order for us to change this situation, we have to put everybody in one pot and say, we're all here together or not here at all. So if you don't understand the system, just look around you. Anybody with any sense could look around and see that this is not the way it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to have people who are mentally ill in these streets. You're not supposed to have elderly people being sucker punched, by these people who are biased of them because of their race, their, situation that they live in in a homeless society. That's not their fault.
Yeah.
It's the society we live in that created this problem, and it was for a reason. Now, simple and plain, I can say one word, and that's genocide. They will genocide us to maintain their power, and this is what it's all about.
Yeah. I would say that I concur that because you've taught me, to look at people as a spectrum of like, someone treats you nice, you treat them nice.
True.
Treat everyone with respect, even if you don't like them.
That's true.
And you taught me that from a young little boy. So my follow-up question would be, now that we are building a stronger relationship, how do you feel with a lot of families that disown or don't recognize their children when they quote unquote come out or say that they are homosexuals, or they don't, this whole, well, you're not my kid anymore kind of thing? How, because you accept me for who I am.
Yeah.
You love me for who I am. You always have. And you've never judged me on any type of circumstance. You just said, you're my son, and period. There's nothing after that. But what would you tell a parent out there that, you know, quote unquote, doesn't love their kid or turn their back on their kid just because of a sexual preference?
That's a good question. Me being a parent, me understanding now what has really happened in this country and why it's happening, you can't escape it no matter how you look at it. You're going to have to deal with it whether you like it or you don't. And I'm talking about parents, I'm talking about people who created this situation as it is. This was a master plan. This was all a master plan for what it is. AIDS came and it was a master plan. They experimented with it over in Africa on our people. They've genocided our people. They brought it to America. Europeans brought it from America and utilized it into the communities in which we lived in. And say, especially in San Francisco, that was a peace movement back in the 60s, but it actually was a sexual relationship movement where they experimented with homosexuality. And people thought that was okay, at that time. Free love, free peace, and all that. That was just a ploy. And I don't think that people really got the message back then. But when they did get the message and it happened to them, and they did catch AIDS and they did catch all the venereal disease out here, it was for a reason. We're all an experiment in this country. Every man, woman, and child today. Pharmaceutical industry makes drugs. They experiment on people regardless if you're sick or not. You're getting shots for COVID-19 that you know nothing about. They just tell you there's a virus running around here and you're getting shots for it. But you don't know the magnitude of that shot, how it plays a psychological role on your life as well as a physical role on your life. And that happens to all of us. That doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
They're doing this for a reason. And you need to wake up and understand that we're all affected by this.
Yeah.
Every parent, every person who's, heterosexual, homosexual, whatever you want to call this, binary, whatever. But what I'm saying, you need to stop and take close attention to how it affects you emotionally and psychologically. It's really detrimental. Right now, what's going on in this country is a mess. And you can see it in politics, you can see it in
Religion.
religion, you can see it anywhere you want to see it now. It's more prevalent than it has ever been in the history of this country. And they're showing you, and the truth is in front of your own face, is whether or not you want to accept it. It's whether or not you're man enough, woman enough to understand what has actually happened to this country and the world itself and why it's happening. We have more people in this world now than we've ever seen in our lifetime. And they don't have the necessary means to be able to accommodate them any longer. Their resources is coming thin. You can see it in climate change. You can see it in everything they do. Shoot to the moon, to Mars. You're not going to escape this. And I'm going to tell any scientist, I'm going to tell any doctor, any politician, anyone, you're lying to yourself. Because my God, your God, and all of our gods will always say this: what goes up has got to come down. And this is what's happening now. We've gone so high that we thought we were the gods. When we misunderstood what religion was in terms of how it affects our life. It was supposed to be given to us as a learning tool to take care of our families, to take care of our poor people, take care of our mothers and fathers when they got old. All this is in the Bible. You can't escape that. The truth is the truth. You can't erase that.
Even though they rewritten the Bible so many
Even though
times.
they've rewritten it, it's still there. Every time you look around and over in Egypt, they're discovering what? Another tomb. In that tomb, who was there? Where is the tomb at that they discovered? And you know, and I know, and everybody in here knows, it came from Africa. Who are the original people of the world?
Yeah.
You see, this is something that people have to understand. You can't fight the truth. You have to accept the truth and work with the truth and help yourself to understand why it is what it is, because the God that you're praying is not the God that is in that Bible.
Yeah.
The God
They recreated it.
That's right. The God is really within us. Did you ever hear that term in the Bible said, know thyself? Who do you think he's talking about?
Yeah.
Talking about God. God is in all of us, and nobody understands that.
Yeah.
They only look at the church. They look at the pastor. These are people that are supposed to be telling the truth, reaching out to the community and doing the work in which God put them there to do. What are these cheap preachers doing? What are these community leaders doing? They're not doing what God asked them to do. They've gone against what God has said. Yeah. So what happens? What happens to when people stop doing what God says to do?
They turn on each other.
They not only just do that, they destroy the very process in which they were supposed to create.
Yeah.
That's what is so important to understand. What we do in our daily lives, as well as what we plan on doing in our future life, is to be able to honor. It's like we were taught, honor thy father and thy mother, and your days shall be long. How many people can say that?
Yeah. We don't respect each other.
No.
We don't love on each other. And that's where, I differ with a lot of people when it comes to, I would say, religion. I'm just very spiritual because it just doesn't, you're supposed to love people and you're supposed to, as they say, honor God's word, but they spill more hatred saying that, God says you're going to burn in hell for being this way or that way if it doesn't align with what they want you to align with. And, that's why a lot of people go against the church because it's like, I'm supposed to feel love. I'm supposed to feel safe with community, but a lot of times we have to create our own community. And that's why a lot of times I feel, I guess, in a different way of, being segregated from homosexuals versus, heterosexuals. Like it's like a battle. between the two, when our preference on our sexuality or the preference of like wanting to be with the same sex has nothing to do with the character of the person.
True.
And it's mind boggling that people care so much about what you do behind closed doors or, with your personal business. That has nothing to do with your character. It has nothing to do with me being a good person and loving God or whatever name you want to, he goes by or use. It has nothing to do with the core value of being a human being.
True.
And I feel like that is one of the saddest things that has happened just being a witness to it. And I know you've witnessed so much in your 73 plus years. And that's why you can talk on so many things. I'm blessed to see 38 this year, but it's just like at the same time, like you don't even much know which way is left, which way is right sometimes because you have so many different avenues of hatred coming your way sometimes, being a black man, being a gay black man. Like it's just like I'm a human being first and foremost. And I just thank, you for just loving me for me. And a lot of people out there don't have a parent or a community that just loves them for them.
Yeah.
And that is your point, and I get it. My dad is very outlandish. He will say a lot, but that is the main point that he wants you to get through to you is to just love each other and respect each other. You don't always have to disagree. You don't always have to like what the other person says, but you can do it in a way that is tactful and meaningful and respectful at the same time. Um, but I just thank you for just this conversation. It has opened my eyes about a lot of things that we differed on, and that we have so many similarities when it comes to just general factor of love and respect and honor from each other standpoint and from a father standpoint that our relationship just continues to get stronger.
Oh yeah.
Our communication and things of that nature. Um, my last question would be, what would you change if you could, or if you did want to change something about your parenting skills?
There are a lot of things that we could say to ourselves as parents that we'd like to change about ourselves. I think what I'm saying is, as a parent, we are a parent. We give birth to our children. And parenting skills comes from experience. It comes from a time where we were taught, in our lives by observation of other families and other parents, growing up. It comes from, your single family setting, your mother or just your father. Parenting is a very tricky thing. It has to do with a lot of self-searching. What do you expect of yourself so your children can expect the same thing? To do that, you have to understand that having to be a parent is a real serious issue today. A lot of parents are too young to be parents, first of all. We didn't know how to correct that problem, as black parents, or I should say single parents, because they were children having children. They were going through stages in their lives that they had no idea that was all about. This is not about having to have sex and it's free sex or, just because you have a baby doesn't make you a man or a woman. What makes a man and a woman able to take care of that baby is what they are as a parent, understanding that there are guidelines to parenting.
Yeah.
True. I'll tell anybody,
But a lot of people today, they don't have a great example. And
No.
it's like what I said earlier, like you had a foundation. You were
Yeah.
blessed to have a foundation of a two-parent household, which most people don't experience. Um, and you had a two-parent household that both parents worked two jobs. at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
But now you do have a lot of people that are single mothers or single fathers, working two jobs, or not working, not being able to provide for their kid the way that they want to, or trying to set that, that positive example. So yes, you have children having children to a certain extent. I would say that there are a lot of successful single mothers
Oh yeah.
and single fathers,
Absolutely.
but there is a need to have both in the household
True.
because it does set a precedent that I can have the whole picture, as a family. But I
Yeah.
feel like that's also a society thing that, like, you're less than if you don't have both your parents,
Yeah.
or if your mother is always working or your father is always working. But I was in the household with both, and
Yeah.
you both had
Mm.
careers, and you
Mhm.
both held down sometimes two jobs just to make sure that we never had a no. We never heard no from you guys. You know, it was always like, oh, Pierre, that's so expensive, but I'm gonna get it. Or, all right, son, you're doing good in school. I guess, you can have that. But I never heard the word no in the sense of no, I'm not able to do it.
Mhm.
I always heard, okay, well, show me that you deserve it. But we do have that precedence now that, kids today don't experience that foundation. And that's what I look at it. It's just more of a foundation. I don't think it's more of like one is worse than the other because you can have both parents and still be lost,
Oh, true. Very true.
you know? So, how do you rectify certain situations? Like, what would you have done? That's what I mean. Like, what would you have done a little different?
What if I told you if I didn't give you what you wanted? What would that make you feel like?
Um, well, me, I'm different. So, I would, I would work and get it myself. So that's not really
That's not really
that's
true.
not really an answer for
No, I'm
me.
just, yeah, I understand, but I understand what you think that I should have done a little differently as my child, you
Yeah,
being my
well,
child.
me personally, I would have wanted more time, quality time.
That that's
Like gifts,
that's true.
gifts,
Yeah,
you always got that, but I'm saying quality time. That's what I would want. I'm
yeah.
asking you as your
Your son,
son,
yeah.
what would you have done differently if you did something different?
Me being who I was with you, I noticed that I didn't have that quality time with you, but I did make preparations for you and I and your mother and your brother, your sister, and what have you to do things. So what I did personally to try to alter, that gap between us, I put you in the right schools. I put you in the sports events. I put you in computer school, graphic schools, those kind of things through the summer to fill the void between us to help you understand if you had any questions or any way of pointing to where you want to go in your future. I was there for you, to do that. Even though I verbally did not say that, I always used to tell you, experience things that you don't know anything about so you know where you want to go in your life. And I think by putting you there it helped you a great deal to understand what it was that you were really wanting to do
Yeah.
down the way. Not every parent sees that, and not every parent was able to afford that. But I was fortunate enough to be able to afford it because I was working two jobs and I was able to provide those things for you. The camps, the arts, the literature, whatever it was that you wanted to do,
Yeah.
you could do it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a question for me to spend money on my child to make sure he was enhanced on anything that he would like to do. My only thing as a parent, I think what I really wanted to really instill in you was your history as a young black child. Had I known how important that is in raising you, my son, to know who you are, or let's say where we came from, and what it is to be who we are, and be able to maintain the social order in which we came from, and what it was to to enhance ourselves with. I think me as a father, as a black man, and an understanding that this life that you live today, and all of us around here that live from our parents and what have you, I think the important thing in our lives would have been to discover the fact that we came from somebody. We contribute to this world more than they could ever imagine. And to do that today with every black mother, father, grandparent, whatever, and whatever, they need to understand they need to take that special time when they have it now with their young children and instill in them the history and the value and the principles in which we stand for. We're not people that are inferior. We have never been inferior. It's a myth to say that even that we were shiftless or slaves or this is our role. That's all a bunch of BS. This is why I try to tell you guys, all of us today, is that this was a plan. And you have to understand the plan in order to correct the problem. The problem is that we take everything for granted instead of looking and seeing that we contribute to this very thing that these young men are doing today. We have the phones, we have the computers that were made by black men and women. We shot the first spaceship to the moon was a black woman and her group that calculated all these things for these people who are doing the very things today. We have a tremendous amount of history and knowledge that very few of us or very few people in the world know about because it's been covered up in layers on layers and layers. It's doing it every day of our lives. But we as parents, me as a parent, I have to say, if you had a child, I would take that child and I would take him where he need to see these things and do these things so he knows his contribution, where he should, be and where he should want to be in his life. And that's what I do.
Well, I appreciate you, Dad, always, because you've
It's fun.
always given knowledge and you always have such a admiration about life and making sure that we are better than where we came from.
Yeah.
And I thank you for just sharing your story and enlighten me now as a young adult and a young man having my own has truly enlightened me in a way that like I admire you even more and so much more appreciative of the journey that we've been through and the healing journey that we've gone through
Sure.
together and separately. And to my viewers, um, have those conversations with your parents while they're here. It's never too late to make amends for anything on both sides. And until next time, I'm your host, Pierre Baines, and thank you for tuning in to Put It on Front Street. And thank you to my dad for joining me, and
All
you'll
right,
have a
Lord
good one.
bless. Thank you very much for having me.